Hello, and welcome to Spiritual Living Today. We are here to experience this human life in all of its glorious contrast. Jennifer Lonnberg and her guides have been helping people bridge the gap between spirituality and being human, and how to realistically and practically incorporate spirituality into all aspects of our daily life since 2015. She is the author of multiple books, including Embodied Grace, A Woman's Path to Empowerment, and The Secret Experiences of a Closet Psychic. This is the place to be to talk about all things life and spirituality. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Living Today. Last week we talked about distractions and really about being intentional when it comes to our spirituality and really about everything in life, right? And I feel like that kind of leads into what my guides have been asking me to speak about, which is discernment and discipline. And I want to talk about this in a couple of different ways so that we really understand that it's not about being in fear, right? It's just about being intentional and then having the discipline to make choices for ourselves, be empowered within ourselves, know what choices are right and wrong for us, but not about being afraid of anything and not about being in judgment of things, right? So one of the things that my guides say about discernment and judgment, like if you look up the word discernment, it actually says good judgment, right? It's keen insight and good judgment. That's what you'll find if you look up the idea of discernment, but it's not the same as being judgy or being judgmental. It's about discerning what is right for you. So this can be something very simple, like you see something that somebody else is doing and it's great for them. That doesn't mean that's necessarily something that's good for you. We can make this as basic as the kind of foods that you eat, right? Like some people can eat, well, anything. Like some people can eat, I'll just use alfalfa, for example. So some people do really well on alfalfa supplements, alfalfa sprouts, those kind of things. Some people cannot do that. Their bodies do not work with that kind of food. Same thing with dairy, same thing with gluten, right? So we have all of these basic things. You can discern, yeah, gluten's not for me. When I have gluten, it makes me feel this way. It doesn't mean that gluten in itself is bad because some people are just fine with it, right? But for you, do you really want to eat something that you know is not going to make you feel very good? The same kind of rationale is what we want to add to our spirituality and our spiritual practices. We want to do what feels right to us, and we want to be discerning about what is right for us. So it's never about fear, but it's more of being intentional with yourself in what is right for you, what isn't right for you. Is meditation with like frequencies a good thing for you, or does it really not work well for you? Is meditation outside in nature the best way for you? Is doing a Bible study the best way for you to dive into your spirituality? Or is it better to just pray and journal, right? Like there's no right or wrong within this. It's just figuring out for yourself what makes the most sense and what is right for you, because the more we can tap into our own authenticity, the more that we can understand what we have going on within ourselves, that's where the discernment is key. But I also want to take this a little bit further and couple this with discipline. So spiritual discipline it doesn't mean that every day you sit down for 45 minutes and do prayer and meditation. Spiritual discipline is being disciplined about knowing what's right for you and what isn't, knowing that you can tap into your guides and angels when it feels right for you. Having the discipline to do the practice, meaning that you do sit down to pray, journal, meditate, whatever that is for you on a consistency basis, but also knowing that if you miss it one day here and there, that doesn't mean that you don't have a spiritual connection, right? So again, discernment and discipline. Are you somebody that feels good meditating 45 minutes a day, or is 10 minutes a day good for you? Now, when we go into the discipline piece, the other thing that I want to talk about is discerning when it comes to spirit. Okay. So there are all kinds of different entities out there. And again, I want to make sure that we understand we're speaking about this from a place of no fear. Okay. In my book, The Secret Experiences of a Closet Psychic, I talk a little bit about this. There are angels, there are demons. Both are part of this experience. But we know we don't need to be afraid of the demons because we have our own free will. We have our own sovereignty. The only way that the demons can mess with us is if we allow it. And it may be on an unconscious level, like maybe you don't know that you're allowing it, but you can be tricked and deceived into thinking that you don't have any power, which is how then they get the power, right? So it comes back to this idea of the sovereignty and understanding that you are a divine being and that you don't have to be afraid if you're moving forward in authenticity. Now, when you discern the spirits, it's as simple as asking for Jesus and the angels to surround you in a divine sacred space before you do any spiritual work. This is one of the things that I've taught, like every person I've ever worked with. The first thing we teach on is setting up your sacred space. Now, this is never about fear. This is just setting up a sacred space, a sacred energy around you that's only allowing the highest and best divine love and light to come through, whether that's in prayer or meditation or channeling a message or whatever that is in your practice, whatever, if it's energy healing, like if you're doing a session with somebody, even if it's just reading cards, like you want to set up a divine sacred space, which is, again, going back to being intentional. You're intentionally setting the intention and the energy that you're wanting the highest and best divine love and light to come through. Now, to take this a little bit step further, if you are, for example, channeling, or if spirit comes to you, just because that spirit comes to you, you still have the power of discernment to decide if you will interact with that spirit or not. It doesn't mean good, bad, or otherwise, but one of the things that I see that happens a lot is a lot of, especially newer mediums maybe, or mediums that don't have much training in how to work with spirit, right? They're like, oh my God, spirits just come to me and it's so great and it's so exciting. And I don't want to take away from that. However, it is really fun if you are open to that and it's a new experience, but also you want to be discerning in what you're opening up to. The reason that this is so important is because there are spirits in the astral plane. Okay, so they can get stuck for many different reasons. And I've taught on this in different places within my YouTube and then in the private teaching that I do in the membership and whatnot. So I want to try to make sure that I explain this in a way for, if you've heard me, you'll know what I'm talking about and it'll be a good reminder. And if you've never listened to anything that I've taught on, this will be, I want it to come across to where you can understand what I'm talking about. So when we're dealing with spirit, there are different levels. There's, us as humans are here on this earth experience, in the human realm, having all of the experiences of this earth life, right? And then it's almost like dialing into a radio station. So when you turn the dial, it turns you into a different frequency, right? And so we can go into the elementals, we can go into the angelic realms, we can go into all of the different celestial realms, right? And there are different galactic beings now that are also available to us on this planet, because as the earth has raised its consciousness with the collective, meaning everybody that's here on the planet, we're raising the awareness of spiritual ideas, spiritual truth, opening to the ideas that we create our reality by our thoughts and our words and our actions and all of these things, which are actually old ancient teachings. Like even the Bible says you speak your, the words you speak, it can either be swords or can empower, right? Like there's so much about the spoken word and how you create by speaking. But not to get off topic, because we're, as a collective, opening up to that, we're also opening up to higher frequencies. And there's more angelic frequencies available to us. There are more galactic frequencies available to us. So I'm just going to give a quick example to try to make this as basic as I can. So if you are awakening to these new ideas that spirit can communicate with you, if you're a new medium or you're opening your awareness to the other realms, your clairs, right? Claircognizance, clairvoyance, clairaudience, whatever that is. If a spirit comes to you and says, hey, I want to work with you, you can say, okay, but first, let me check some things here, right? So this is kind of like testing the spirit. So again, you guys know by now that I have a Christian background. This would be where I would say, let's test the spirits, right? We want to make sure that we're only working with the highest and best divine love and light. One of the easiest ways to do that is when that spirit is saying, I want to work with you, you can say, I want to make sure you're of the highest and best love and light. I'm asking Jesus and the angels to come in and help me with this discernment, right? So, or whichever ascended master that you work with. If the spirits are in the highest and best integrity, because we have to remember, these beings also have their own stuff, their own agendas, their own free will, their own things that they are wanting to accomplish, right? And so in order for us to be in our own sovereignty, we get to then choose and discern, do we want to work with those beings or not? Now, again, that doesn't mean that they're good, bad, or evil, whatever. Usually if it's a negative entity, you will probably get a feeling that kind of makes you want to recoil a little bit, and you'll be like, nope, this is where I put up my boundary. You are not welcome here. And again, you do not have to be afraid. You just have to say, you're not welcome in my space. You're not welcome in my energy. I'm not open to working with you. Please be on your way. Right? Like that would be a very polite, I probably, to be honest, would not say please. I would be like, get out, go on. You're not, I'm not working with you here. But just one of the things that I see a lot is this idea of codependency and victimhood energy leaking into or blending into being empathic. So when you're empathic, you can feel the vibrations, the frequencies, all of those things. Almost every intuitive person I know has empath abilities, and they're empathic on some level. But within that, you want to have the discernment of feeling, is this the highest and best? Is this the best thing for me? Is this the right thing for me? And you want to be enough aware of your own abilities to have the discernment of, like, when you're working with your own guides and angels, if you're in prayer and meditation, how do you feel? How does your body feel, right? Once you have that core understanding of your own essence and then the guides and angels that you're familiar with, then you'll get a better sense of the other energies that are coming in. So back to just a quick example. If a spirit comes in and says, I want to work with you, you don't immediately need to say, okay, right? You can say, let me run some things by you. Like, let me test some things. This is testing the spirits. This is where you want to say, well, what do you believe about God? What do you believe about source energy? What is your mission? Why are you here? Why are you contacting me? But more than anything, I want you to trust your own intuition. And I want you to be aware that they can say, oh, I'm here to work with you. I don't want you to fall into the trap of feeling like just because they're a celestial being, they are higher or better than you. There are beings that are coming in that are very tricky, very trying to make you think that they're good, but they're not, right? So we have to be aware of this. And again, it always comes back to frequency and alignment. But you ultimately have the divine authority over yourself and what you choose to do. You're not a victim to your gifts. You're not a victim to the astrology. You're not a victim to any of the entities that may be coming in. You get to have boundaries in all of those places. Now, this is one of the reasons why when somebody works with me, one of the things that I work with first is really helping them understand what healthy boundaries are. Because one thing that I've seen across the board is if you don't have healthy boundaries in your human experience, it's really easy to not have healthy boundaries in your spiritual experience. And this is where I see mediums that say, well, I just can't help it. They just come to me all the time and it doesn't matter what time of the night it is, right? Or they say, oh, well, a spirit comes to me and I have to do this work because they're coming to me. And the truth is we all have this ability on some level. Some people are just a little bit more naturally inclined to being a medium or a channel or whatever. But again, just because you can doesn't mean you need to or you have to. So this is all about boundaries. If you choose to then channel or work with these other beings, these other spiritual beings, whether that be a celestial being or angelic realm beings, or even people that have passed over, right? If you choose to work with any of them, you get to do so, but from your own sovereignty, from your own place of having good discernment and having good discipline, and really putting forward that boundary to make sure that you're working with the highest and best divine love and light. Now, why this is so important for me to talk about, again, I've talked about this all throughout the entire time of doing this work, which is coming on like 10 years. I don't know. It feels like it's been forever. This is March of 2023. So it's been a few years that I've been doing this. But part of the reason it's so important now, again, don't get caught up if you don't understand astrology, don't get caught up in the details of that. This would be distractions that we talked about in last week's podcast. But we're in this energy of Saturn and Pisces. It's important during this energy to watch for extremes, because this can be extreme spirituality, but also can be illusion. It can be, with Pisces, too easily accepting everything or being hypersensitive to things, but being naive can get you into trouble, especially with spiritual entities and spiritual practices. You want to know what you're doing. Like, don't go try to open energetic portals if you don't know what that means, or if you don't know what you're doing. Like, don't go do that work. Don't go try to clear a house if you don't know what you're doing. Like, there's a reason that there have been teachers in these practices throughout history, because it's not something that you just want to do willy-nilly. And this is where I feel like it's so important at this time in history for the Saturn and Pisces, because Saturn is about the big lessons, the discernment, having the discipline, right? Saturn is the really good teacher that teaches you all the things that you need to know, even if it's a not fun lesson, even if it's a frustrating lesson, even if you feel pressured. Like, this is Saturn's purpose, is to help us have these hard lessons. With this Pisces energy, we have to be aware. Don't fall into victimhood. Don't fall into hypersensitivity. If you're extremely sensitive, take care of yourself. Make sure that you know what your limits are with spiritual energy, with frequency energy, with even noise and sounds and being out in public, right? Like, be aware of that. There's a really good openness and availability right now for a good spiritual outlook, but we're also going into the galactic cosmic abyss with this, right? So this can be totally magical, and it can be overly emotional, and all of the things in between. One of the things that came through for the March 2023 overview in the membership, which is the Ascension Club. And if you want to join that, you can find information below in the show notes. But the Ascension Club is my membership, and we meet every month. We have an open Q&A call, but then I also channel the energy of the month. I usually pull cards, and then any other messages that come through from my guides. And I do astro energy updates. So like the Saturn and Pisces stuff, I'll be covering the astrology part and how the energy of that shows up. And one of the things that came through for March of 2023 is making the mystical and magical manifest. So it's an amazing time to open to your spiritual gifts. It's an amazing time to understand and awaken to the idea that we are multidimensional. It's an amazing time to be able to understand that there are galactic energies that are available to us. And also, at the same time, do so with discipline and discernment, so that it's always in the highest and best divine love and light for you and for humanity.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to grab the free downloadable resources for this episode. You can find the details in the show notes.
Remember that Jennifer offers an app, a variety of online courses, as well as private VIP coaching and mentorship. You can find out more about this on her website at �jenniferlonnberg.com.